Good day, and welcome to what is possibly going to be the only episode of OpenGL. This is, of course, just a basic podcast, and the title itself was actually suggested to me by a fan whose name I cannot remember at the moment. But you know who you are, sir, and I appreciate the idea. Until I've been gone for quite some time, and, well, for those who've followed my channel for a considerable amount of time, you'll probably know why. But we're going to try to push it right on through anyway. So what's the point of this podcast? Well, the point of the podcast is to ask a few questions and try to contemplate the answers. Now, of course, joining me is the M-Man, the ever-philosophical Euroman.
Otherwise known as Mr. Beanie.
Exactly. Now, what exactly is the Beanie? The Beanie, of course, is a in-joke between the M-Man and I. Essentially, the M-Man reads a wide variety of literature that might or may not be considered, I don't know, refined. And, well,
Personally, I prefer the term highly intellectual and elucidated.
Well, there you go. And the man, of course, also has a variety of knowledge in psychology and things of that nature. And we'll often banter back and forth about, the psychological aspects of certain media. And, well, I figured why not try to make a podcast out of that. And the first topic for today, that I'm literally pulling straight out of my ass, not literally, because why would I do that? Because that would be kind of uncomfortable, and not to mention inefficient, is the concept of being dark for the sake of dark. Now, the M-Man just recently tried to read the comic known as The Boys by a comic writer whose name I also can't remember.
Garth Ennis.
That guy, yeah, because Garth Ennis is one of those guys that's really bad about being dark for the sake of dark. But tell us a bit about it.
Okay, so first, I gotta give a bit of a background on Garth Ennis. My first exposure to the guy was through the Punisher comics, that started in the early 2000s, called Welcome Back, Frank, and then finally culminated with Punisher Max from 2004 to 2008. 2012 if you count the Jason Aaron run as well. Garth Ennis is really good at making things dark, but he also cannot help but inject some sort of dark humor into things. This makes some of the darkness seem kind of cartoony when it's finally made, in its full form. Although he can and will from time to time make serious stories with without his trademark dark humor. For instance, one of the most depressing, dark, and utterly hope-sapping stories of the Punisher Max series is The Slavers, where it goes into detail about how slaver organizations work and how they are not, these cartoon villains with the, a guy at the top who, if you kill him, everyone else will disperse. No. There's minute fucking cells all across the world that can never be fully exterminated. And the people who get saved, if they are saved, they'll either get back to being, prostituted, or they'll live with horrible traumas their whole lives, or they will just commit suicide from depression or devastation or whatnot. It is so fucking dark because it is that fucking realistic, and it does not pull any punches.
It really is. I actually have read it myself, thanks to somebody who shall remain nameless. Man. But anyway, it was a very depressing story, but I think it was necessary for it to be depressing, because that's a real issue. That's one of the real issues that are facing society today, the concept of human trafficking. And I like how it didn't pull any punches and didn't make it into just a generic comic book storyline where everything is wrapped up in a neat little package at the end. But then you got The Boys. Now, I actually read it before the M-Man, and, well, I thought it was pretty much crap.
Yeah, it pretty much is. I never finished it because it was just that fucking crap. That should tell you how crap it is. You want to give your reasons for it being crap?
Well, I wanted you to give a bit of a synopsis for it.
Okay. Okay, so basically, The Boys. I'm not gonna try and spoil it just in case somebody out there gives a shit. But basically, in this world, you have superheroes, okay? You have the Superman analog, you have the Wonder Woman analog, you have the Flash analog, etc., etc., etc. These superheroes are... they're kind of... Does anyone remember that episode of Atop the Fourth Wall where Linkara reviews the Ultimates, and the heroes there are more concerned with PR? Well, The Boys takes that to an even bigger extreme, where they're so obsessed with PR that doing superhero work is just something that helps the PR, and helping people is just something that they, I suppose I'll have to do it. They're such blatant assholes with no redeeming features. It's like, the first time, it's like, we're introduced to the Superman analog, where he's interviewing this newcomer, Starlight, I wish tonight, some chick with star in her name. This, newbie superhero who wants to join the big leagues. They're talking back and forth about how some of the members of the Justice League analog are assholes, yada yada yada. And so it comes to the point where Superman analog says to the chick that she has to prove herself, and she's like, "Yes, I'll do anything." And in the meantime, he was taking off his pants, and then just told her, "Suck it."
And that's kind of when the comic lost me, because that's like any pretension towards seriousness kind of went out the window. Because like that's dark for the sake of dark. It really is,
exactly.
in my opinion.
It is. It would have been better if it was. It would have been better if those heroes were corrupt, but still had some sort of ounce of humanity instead of being so cartoony and that shit. Now, that may have been Garth Ennis' intention, because superhero comics usually are cartoony. They, by definition, cannot be overtly serious, but it just doesn't work in The Boys, because he's trying to go for dark and corrupt and edgy, but at the same time, it feels like it's a political satire comic.
It really does, actually.
You can't have serious and satire in the same package. And of course, then there's The Boys, the eponymous group. It's consisted of the Butcher, who's basically all the worst qualities of Jesse and no wait, is his name Jesse? Yeah, Jesse Custer and Cassidy the Vampire from Preacher. Now, just so we're clear, I fucking love The Preacher. I think that is Garth Ennis' single best work right after The Punisher Max, because The Preacher has drama, it has comedy, it has action. It's dark while being a dark comedy. It's balanced so it works. It never takes itself seriously. It knows it's skull-fuckingly insane, and it just runs with it. And the character of Jesse Custer and Cassidy the Vampire, they are both, they can both be dicks. Both have flaws, but they're genuinely nice people, and they stick by their friends, and they care about not hurting innocents, and they genuinely want to help people when people need help, but they have flaws. With The Boys, the Butcher is just... he, does care somewhat about people, but he's still primarily an asshole who does this out of revenge. Basically, The Boys are an organization that keeps tabs on the supers so that they don't get out of control and fuck shit up. Then you have the character of the Frenchman, who's just a great fighter and can wreck people's shit. And
I think one of the big problems with him is there's actually a sequence where some normals insult France and he kills them all. I'm thinking, am I supposed to be rooting for this guy? Seriously? Because, that's the problem. If you're going to make the generic superheroes evil, then the people that fight them shouldn't technically be as bad as they are. I mean, At some point you have to ask... And I know there's the concept of, it's so dark, you can't root for anybody, but at the same time, At the same time, even with the Punisher, who is just a crazy guy, when I was a teenager, I thought he was the only sane man alive, but now that I'm older, I realize that he's crazy himself. But even then, you can at least vouch for the Punisher, because his main goal is to never, ever, ever
hurt an innocent person, and he goes through such great lengths to do so that he is still technically a good guy. But with
Whereas
the Frenchmen,
the boys, they don't really care.
they technically do care, but they care more about it because it's their job. Except for Wee Huey. Wee Huey is pretty much the normal guy in the entire group, but he doesn't have much of a personality, really.
And his, he's visually modeled on Simon Pegg, actually, which is kind of surprising. But I think that's probably what separates the boys as a superhero team-up group from anyone else. It's like, with the Punisher, you could piss him off. Like, let's say you spill your coffee on him. He's not going to shoot you for that. You might get pissed off, but that's not a crime. Whereas with the boys, if you did the same thing, they'd probably rip your head off or something.
Okay, well, here's the thing. If you, went all up to the Punisher and say, "Yo, motherfucker, I'm gonna kick your ass. I'm gonna make sure you wish you was never born." We'll just kick your ass, maybe, put your hand behind your back and, slam your face into the bar. Not so that he kills you, but just so that you know that he doesn't take this shit. And then he'll be like, it's like, "I'm the Punisher. I killed 2,000 people." And you'll be like, "Oh, fuck." But with the boys, they would kill the god in you, as we say here.
They'd kill you so bad, not even God could scrape you together.
Exactly. And here's the thing: some people would probably justify it as, but the boys is more realistic because real superheroes would be dicks just like that. And to quote you, I'm not sure that's exactly accurate. Because most people aren't like that. Maybe if you had an organization, maybe if you had an immense organization that was funded by the government, even as they have it, I still very much doubt everyone in it would be an asshole. Because we like to caricaturize most politicians as being these absolutely selfish, absolutely sadistic, absolutely mindless, id-driven freaks. And that might be true for some of them, but even some of them, which we would love to see, scrapped off of their, money and all that shit. Even some of them have people they care about. They still have morals, some shit that they would never do. Even they have limits. But and the same would be valid for the heroes if we had heroes in the real world. There would be good, there would be bad, there would be corrupt, but there would be a lot of grayness, and they would still have some sort of standard.
Yeah, they wouldn't kill you because you got their coffee order wrong.
Exactly. I mean, and somebody also might defend the boys in that it's like the Justice League analog had this big fucking event, which just sort of crapped their memories, because they couldn't do their job right. Not crap their memories, crap their psyches, because they couldn't do their job right. Which I say, bull fucking shit. If that happened, they would have 10,000 psychiatrists at their beck and fucking call, because they're essentially walking atom bombs.
Pretty much.
I mean, okay, let's say we have Superman. Let's say Superman fucked something up. Let's say that it was hushed up by the government, because it definitely would be. And let's say Superman is feeling depressed as all fuck, and he's considering just giving up. Not only would all of his friends, even those who fucked up with him, at the very least try to get some sort of group organized together where they would, get over it and accept it and move on, but they would be offered the world's top cream of the crop, expert academic psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever, at their beck and call, so that they would not go crazy because Superman can destroy the fucking planet. Exactly. Or at the very least, civilization. No.
And that's the nature of actually writing a real story, because that's what would happen when you write dark for the sake of dark. That can never happen because real life is too gritty for that, even to the point where that really doesn't make any sense. I mean, and that's really the big problem with anything that just goes for dark and flies in the face of all logic. It's one of those things. It's easier for me to believe a man can fly than some of the shit that goes on in The Boys. Just these laps in logic that you kind of have to stack the deck, so to speak, to make this really dark storyline this cartoonishly dark. And anytime you basically subvert basic logic just so you can push this overly dark, cartoonishly dark, I want to say agenda, but you get the idea what I'm saying. It just kind of takes you out of it. It reduces the suspension of disbelief. I think that's the biggest problem. Because I can suspend my disbelief of a man can fly. Okay, he's got, telekinesis. That makes sense. But the idea of some of this stuff just... That's actually kind of a funny concept. I don't know what the psychology behind that would be, but it's easier to believe you can fly than a lot of these organizational things,
I think it's a matter of what did Hitler say? You can get a lot of people to believe in the impossible, but not the improbable.
That's true, actually.
Basically, that which is so insane that it's disconnected from our world to an extent, we can believe it more easily because a man can fly. Dude, that's fucking impossible. But he can fly in this comet. Oh, cool. I wonder how he does it. I wonder what he does with it. That's neat. But let's say, okay, you got this superpowered creature, right? And he's fucked in the psyche. He's depressed and he wants to just, he doesn't care about the people he's supposed to be saving, and the government is funding them all, and they're afraid to do anything to them because they're afraid they might go crazy, even more crazy. Why the fuck don't they just get him a bunch of psychiatrists to help them? The thing is, the Superman might be, your what you call it, the shelving of logic.
Well, that's one way to put it.
A Superman might be a suspension of disbelief, and you can accept it because it's changing, physics or nature in some way, but still having it be grounded in reality to certain rules. Why somebody would not give Superman a psychiatrist when he's obviously mentally disturbed? That's not suspension of disbelief. That's suspension of basic logic.
Pretty much. I think there's another comic by I don't remember who wrote this. Google
Mark
it.
Waid, Irredeemable.
No, well that is one we can discuss, but there's another comic that really has a lot of logic flaws in it, called Super God. I read that one just because I was... It's one of those comics that doesn't sound good, but you're morbidly curious as to how bad it actually is. It's where humanity is capable of creating literal gods. And they don't explain how they do it. One makes sense. Like, they shoot some guy into space and he gets mutated by a space spore. Somehow. And then, like these super gods are supposed to be superheroes created by humanity to show the failings of humanity. But my question is, how do you make them in the first place? Like, India makes, like, this super cyborg guy. Somehow. In, like, the 80s. Okay? And then he goes on a rampage and kills, like, half the population of India. To, like, show that the only way to fix society is to kill a bunch of people because humanity is callous. Like, how'd you make it in the first place? Or, like, America creates, like, this reality warper hero out of magic science. And it's like... I can't suspend my disbelief if you're telling me India. This is not me offending India, but once again, India making a cyborg powerful enough to wipe out half a country. I can't buy that.
See, it depends on what the story is focusing on. If it's specifically focusing on the creation of these super gods and all that, then yes, that is a big leap in logic. However, if it's like I have no mouth and I must scream, where it's concentrating more on the people and how they deal with it, how they adapt psychologically and sociologically to that, then an explanation isn't needed, because in I have no mouth and I must scream, you never learn how the supercomputer can warp reality in such a fashion. You never know how he keeps these people alive for 109 years. You don't know how he specifically decimated the entire Earth. You don't know how exactly he combined himself with all of the other computers in the world.
Yeah, but I think AM makes a bit more sense, though. Because, like, with Super God, they don't really explain how the Super Gods are actually made. They just say they do make them. With AM, I always felt that it was kind of like an accident, where he just became self-aware. And
He did, pretty much.
And using this highly advanced intelligence, was able to tap into something that we don't understand. And that's kind of how I explained it to myself. It's like, he can do these things because he uses computer magic, I guess is the best way to say. Whereas in Super God, it's just, they built him, and he did it. You know? Because it's like, if I want to... Because it's the same kind of concept of, okay, I'm going to go to the hardware store, and I'm going to build a space rocket. That ain't happening. That is not going to happen. I'm not going to have a space rocket that runs on lawnmower gasoline. It isn't going to work. Or Wilford Brimley's UFO. That won't work either. So it's like that. You have to be able to suspend your disbelief. I can believe a supercomputer can have the powers of a god because, at the very least, he's so smart he can do it. Whereas India gets a bunch of computer parts and builds a god. Especially when, like, say, Russia, which I would think is a bit more advanced, at the very least. Once again, not trying to be offensive, but once again, we're talking about the 1980s here. Russia would technically have to be more advanced since it was on parity with the United States. Russia basically builds a cyborg that basically just hits stuff. You would think theirs would be a little more advanced. And the American one actually is pretty much the same kind of concept. He just hit stuff too. But I will say his story was actually a bit better. And if they'd focused on lower level super gods, so to speak, it might have made more sense. Because his story kind of followed, he was technically dead, but still alive. And it was kind of an interesting concept, really.
I think what your problem is that they went into too much detail with the creation, whereas if they just said it was a top secret government experiment, eyes only, nobody will ever find out about it because the documents were destroyed, and then just went to the gods battling themselves, I think you would have had much less of a problem then. Am I correct?
Yeah, but I think they should have kept it a bit more lower level, though. I think whenever you give any character too much power, you have to sort of ask, where did it come from? Because, once again, if you give some psychotic the power cosmic or something like that, then you have to ask, how does it know how to use that? How do they know how to do anything with it? Because, like, wielding the power cosmic requires a lot of high-level intelligence to use properly. And even if you have the power cosmic, decimating the world in, like, a day doesn't make any sense, because you realize how big the world itself is. Even if he was moving at the fucking speed of light, if he was just zapping buildings, that would still take a lot longer. I think it was just the laziness of the writing that really got to me. Because the idea of humanity creating superheroes, or just super beings of any description, can be done well, and can actually kind of show the innate horror of having some being be that powerful. I think the best example would be the Uber comic series. It's a comic series set during World War II where the Germans invent, Ubers. People that have the capacity to leap tall buildings in a single bound and faster than a locomotive and take a lot of damage. And it really shows just how powerful such beings would actually be. And it really handles it in a realistic way. They don't just say, we built him and he now can destroy things. It actually gets into... I like logistics. I like it when things are explained to the point where it's plausible. The concept of this guy was built out of spare parts from a Radio Shack and thus could destroy a whole country doesn't really fly, whereas we use this alien space magic to make this super being. That I can buy that, because that's something that's plausible, We don't know. Whereas I know that if I go to Radio Shack, I'm not building a super being out of that, I'm building a guy with an LED on his head who looks really silly. So, Uber's great because it really shows you, just because you've got, like, Superman, you're not going to win the war. It ain't going to happen. He's going to get tired, he's got to eat, he has to get to the battle, which I actually really liked because they actually talk about how the super beings actually do get tired in that, and they talk about what they got to eat, and what they got to eat is like this sludge filled with nutrients, which is like, and it actually kind of gets into the concept of that's all they can eat. And then they talk about how like they have to be able to see the enemy to attack them, and it makes it the more believable the story is, the more immersive it is, you know. And that's why I think that that's one of the big. Let's get back to The Boys. That's really one of the problems with it is it just isn't believable. It's dark for the sake of dark. It's like you take logic and you fling it out the window because dark. You know, it's kind of like one of the problems I had with RoboCop. One of the few problems is the concept of Ed 209 is armed. Now, I consider Ed 209 being armed just, it's a movie. It would be more entertaining to see him shoot somebody than not, right?
Yeah.
But when you try to justify it, you either have to get rid of logic and use stupid logic, which doesn't make any sense, or you just have to say it's a movie. And I'd rather say it's a movie, because the stupid logic of keeping Ed 209 armed for like a demonstration is, in the future, human life means nothing, therefore these corporate people will just arm him anyway because they don't care about human life. But that doesn't make any sense. It would take more effort to arm Ed 209 than not, right? Therefore...
You know how they easily...
What were you going to say?
You know how easily they could have gotten around that? Basically show the guys, that are setting up Ed 209, get a call right in the middle of it. It's like, hey, we need an Ed 209 for a demonstration. Could you get one? Well, we already armed one of these guys, and like, we can't unclip the magazines because that in itself would take us a lot of time, and then clipping them back on would take even more time, and we need to get them out on the streets fucking now because there's shit going on out there that really needs an Ed. And he could be like, yeah, well, your job is writing on this, pal. You best get him down here right now. Click. And that could also strengthen the message that the world is more concerned with shoving products and corporate interest than actually protecting the people. So they just say, just send the Ed there armed. I don't give a shit. He'll be fine. They're programmed to be smart, right? They can detect that nobody's a danger.
Yeah, that would make sense.
And that way you justify him being armed.
That would make logical sense versus just, we don't care, arm him anyway. Because, like, if you do that, then that just kind of... It's stupid logic. It's like, only if someone were an idiot would you do that. But that's really the big problem with The Boys. Is, like... And also The Boys likes to satirize the Vietnam War a bit. Now, whether or not you agree or disagree with the war, it's kind of inconsequential. But one of the things they talk about is, like... the company behind the superheroes invented like this rifle that doesn't work at all as a direct analog to the M16, and like how they just released it anyway because they needed the money, which doesn't make a lot of sense. That can happen, but at the same time, for it to even get accepted anyway, it has to work a little bit. Although, actually, you know what? I hate to admit it, but some of that is a little bit true, because some American weapons don't work at all, but there's enough of a safety net. It's a good thing it's there. I often like the concept of a safety net. It's basically when everything fails, that's still there to stop it from failing even worse. Because, like, there was one American missile, I forget what it was, I think it's like the Pershing missile or something like that basically had a targeting system so bad it missed the target every time, and when it actually did hit something, it targeted I think it was a latrine fan as like a missile silo. And then there's the M2 Bradley, which is a vehicle so bad they have to constantly revise the safety manual. And one of the articles I read once basically said that if the fire suppression system doesn't work, you really don't want to ride in it because if it catches fire, you'll die instantly. And there's all sorts of issues with that. But at the same time, as bad as the M2 Bradley is, at least it works, because it was actually used in a few battles. It might not be very good, but at the same time, at least... Basically, on Boy's logic, it would work so bad the second you turn the key, it explodes. And while that might have happened once or twice, I guess, I don't really know. If it happened literally all the time, that would not make any logical sense by any stretch of the imagination. As illogical as our own world is, some things still have to make sense just for society to run. That's one of the things, actually, segueing from the Boys to current events for a moment. As we all know, there's stuff going on in Baltimore. There's been all this... there's been all these cops that have had problems caused and things of that nature. The only thing I would say is there are definitely always going to be bad cops, but I think one thing that nobody ever really thinks about is that there is a backbone of police and politicians, and just about in any organization that might have some corruption in it. There always has to be a backbone of people that aren't actually corrupt, that actually do their jobs and do them well. Otherwise, things would be a whole lot worse.
Or at the very least, there's a backbone of people who see the practicality in not being completely corrupt and actually treating the people under you with a bit of humanity.
Exactly. Because there's no way to run a country or run a city or run a military, or at least you're not going to be running it very long if you don't have some degree of competency. Because I think that's what a lot of comic writers don't actually get. Like, they show these things that are really corrupt. Nobody knows what their job is, or everything is just all bribery and this. But at the same time, if everybody does it, nothing gets done. And you just don't really see that. Even in this world today, yeah, there's some construction projects that are built that are complete crap because the mob moved in and basically did it. But at the same time, it kind of behooves everybody to act competent at least a little bit. Or even the same way with products, like a lot of comics and movies will be like, oh yes, we have this new phone that lasts an hour and then it explodes or something. If that was the case, nobody'd buy it. People are stupid, yeah, but they're not that stupid.
At least I hope not.
Well, of course, then again, people will line up around the block for the iWatch. I think the thing that's kind of telling is, I don't know if you remember or even cared, but remember the iPhone antenna problem? Like, it was like built into the casing or something. It was like an iPhone 4. Some big media circus around that, where basically the iPhone 4 didn't work as advertised. And people got pissed at that. The whole government could be falling apart. They don't care. But if their iPhone don't work, that's a problem. Or the red wing of death? There's a fucking dragon now? No, the red ring of death. People complained about that. So the very concept of just releasing inherently defective products, I don't think is really accurate, at least in the real world. In theory,
I could go into a little bit of detail as to why technology not working can piss us off more. It's because you expect it to work, whereas with the government, we expect it to work. Big quotes around expect. It's corrupt as fuck. But with an iPhone, when we, press call, we expect there to be a fucking call patched through to the next iPhone or a Samsung phone,
Exactly.
Hence why you're more pissed.
No, go on.
And hence why you're more pissed. Also, if you're one of those people who gladly pay, how much is it now? $1,000 for the newest iPhone?
If you're one of those people who pay $300. I know that.
If you're one of those people who pay $1,000 or $500 or $600 for a new iPhone, you expect it to fucking work. Personally, I would just get a used one, or better yet, get a burned phone so that I don't have to worry about if it gets smashed or lost.
Indeed. But I think on some levels, people expect the government to work because
yes, they do. They expect they expect it to work in the sense they expect not to get ripped off completely. They expect there not to be jackbooted thugs crashing into their apartment. They expect it to, patch up holes in the road and shit. They expect it to have police, at the very least, to come to tape off the house with the bodies, if nothing else. They expect it. Now, I'm using hyperbole here. They expect it to regulate waste. Let's say some company, let's call it Shelfcom. If Shelfcom is dumping so much shit into the sea that it's literally worse than if an oil spill happened, that shit would never happen. Because we expect the government to actually do its job and make those fuckers not do that.
Exactly. Although, one of the things I've always had a concern about when it comes to the government and the world in general is, while we hope that, like take your average Captain Planet villain, you'd hope that that wouldn't be accurate, but considering the sheer size of the world we live in, and even though everything is so interconnected now that it may be difficult to get away with anything, at the same time, you have to wonder if the pollution, like, let's say, a Captain Planet villain, still takes place, and we just don't know about it.
Well, I imagine it takes place in China, but not in the Western world.
I'm not sure. The thing is, as corrupt as the Western world is, if you pay enough people, they might look the other way.
Yes, but that'll only last for so long. As you said, you can rule a country incompetently, you just won't be ruling it for very long. The same thing with the corruption and the bribery to, not pay attention and to just flood everything with pollution. You can do that. It's just that you won't be doing it for very long.
Well, there's that.
Because let's say you do that, and the people start getting restless, you get riots, and people stop taking shit. The people who have taken bribes, they will not stand up and say, yes, we did it. They'll do something better. They'll take the asshole who bribed them, put it all on him, and fix it that way. They'll still be there to take bribes, but they'll learn, okay, maybe we should not take it this far, guys, alright? We just barely made it with our necks intact, so let's try not to do something of this kind of caliber ever again, or at the very least, not in the next 20 years.
Well, there is that. I'm thinking more of small-scale stuff, though. Stuff that nobody would really notice. But I think even if, I'm thinking, just dumping barrels of toxic waste into secluded parts of the ocean and stuff like that. But then again, when it comes to the ocean or wildlife, people get real militant about that, so they might not be able to get away with it like they used to.
Yeah, well, I can understand that because I've been to nature parks. I like nature like that. It's fun. It's relaxing.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that for me, when it comes to natural habitats and things of that nature, I can get fairly militant about that myself. Because it's like, especially around here, there's not much of it left. But I used to always get so annoyed when they bulldozed yet another swath of forest. Because they were, for some reason, around where I live, for the longest of time, and I can only imagine they're still doing it. In fact, they are still doing it, what am I saying? They would just bulldoze everything, put up a Walmart, or what they love to do, out here at least, is build strip shopping centers. My God, did they build so many of those. And they always there's 3 buildings they put in. A dry cleaners, a nail place, and I forget what the third one is. I know there's a third one, I just can't remember what it is. But it's always a dry cleaners, nail place, and something else. And what's funny is half those strip shopping centers have no buildings in them. So you would think they would just use those. Although, that just reminds me, before I forget, there was actually, talking about small-scale industrial pollution, there was actually some small-scale industrial pollution in Houston, where they were polluting just this little retaining pond. And you want to know something funny? They actually caught the guy who did it, and I think he's in jail now.
So there might be some sort of justice in the world.
Yeah, there is that. Because it's like, comic books can get away with a lot. Speaking of comics, there's actually been a recent RoboCop comic. that both the M-Man and I have read. I didn't like it.
Yep.
The M-Man did.
Isn't that always the case? Or at the very least, the inverse?
My problem with the comic can be summed up with I cannot suspend my disbelief on it. Because I think with a lot of comics, they don't really get the concept of crime. Crime stops being crime at a certain point and becomes terrorism. Basically, in the new RoboCop comic, it's a few years later in the RoboCop timeline. A few years from, I think, like RoboCop 1. I don't remember if it... I don't think it follows on like from RoboCop 3 or anything. So I think it's a direct sequel to RoboCop 1 because Ann Lewis is still alive. And RoboCop is still, well, RoboCop. Although the comic does get kind of stupid. There's the whole concept of political correctness gone mad. Eventually they do take away RoboCop's pistol, which literally makes no sense. But we'll get into why that makes no sense right now. Essentially, a bunch of gangs are stealing Ed 209s and rampaging through the streets, robbing banks with it. At that point, that stops being crime. That's terrorism. Okay? Robbing a bank is where one idiot with a hood on his head goes in, steals maybe $1,000 and leaves. When you've got walking tanks throughout the street, you call in the National Guard for that, not just a cop.
Okay, but I can actually sort of believe that because it's just an extension of... Oh my god, we're going to go so political here. Because it's just an extension of the kind of logic whereupon, like, for instance, in Great Britain, for a while, they thought their policemen didn't need to have a pistol or anything. Just a truncheon. Like RoboCop. And he manages to kick ass with that. It's just an extension of that kind of stupidity, where guns are bad, but criminals have guns. So, you shouldn't have guns, because that'll make it only worse. I've seen comments where people consider you having a gun bad, but a criminal having a gun is a non-issue, or one that's not even that apparent or likely to happen at all.
Well, their thought is this: if citizens don't have guns, criminals don't have guns, and they'll likely point out England and stuff like that because they don't have a lot of guns in England themselves. However, what they don't talk about is the alternative means of committing crimes. And I can tell you this, if I see somebody running at me with a rock ready to bash my skull in, I personally would like a gun to shoot them with. Because you can run away, but what if you're really slow? You know?
That reminds me, like, over here you would get arrested for using excessive force. Because, like, he was just coming at you with a rock. You shot him dead with a gun. Now, to me, that's like saying it's like, why did you drink water? You weren't even thirsty. You know, you weren't even dying of thirst. It's like, because I wanted to. And I'm not saying I would shoot the guy because I wanted to. I'm just saying, to me, a piece of people saying it's like, he was trying to kill you with a rock and you shot him dead with a gun. You're the criminal. To me, it's just nonsensical as fuck.
Yeah, that is one of the big problems. You know, I think the people who come up with ideas like that never had to really face life-threatening situations.
There are some who had. I can vouch for that.
Well, if that's the case, then I don't get how you do that. Because, like, if you had your life threatened in any way, I don't know how you could be anti-defense. And I suppose there's a variety of psychological issues that could cause that, but once again, if somebody came at me with a rock with intent to smash my head open, I would want whatever gun I could possibly get. Because I don't like my head getting smashed open with a rock. You know?
You know, personally, I would rather be a murderer and alive rather than a pacifist and dead.
Yeah, there's that concept too, pacifism. I don't have a problem with pacifism. In fact, I would consider myself that, but I also recognize that other people aren't. You know?
And it also doesn't help. It also doesn't help that I'm not that good with, hand-to-hand combat.
And there's that. That nobody ever really thinks about. Not everybody can run away. Not everybody can just fight with martial arts and stuff like that. And my thought has always been this, the cops can't get there immediately. They just can't. They physically can't. And, well, the thing is, a criminal might get their hands on a gun, but an innocent person who wants to stay alive might need a gun in order to, well, stay alive. It's kind of the concept of, I would rather execute 5 innocent men than let one guilty man go free.
Well,
it's like we need to protect the whole populace, even if some people... Actually, no, that doesn't make any sense.
But, see, I would rather not... I would rather not execute even one innocent person.
Well, what I'm saying is it's the same kind of logic of, okay, the society will be safer because there are no guns, even though some people may need them to defend themselves because, well, just because you get rid of guns doesn't mean you're going to get rid of crime. And so what I'm saying is we need to enforce the law so the whole population will be safe, even if some people get not necessarily killed, but if some people are negatively impacted by it who don't deserve it. That's more what I was saying.
I get you.
So,
and one other thing is that a gun is it comes from this Far Cry 2 video game where you have the Jackal, this nihilist. It says like the AK-47 is the great equalizer. I take it in a more positive message, where rather a gun is an equalizer in the sense you could have Bubba Joe Hooper Stick, the 7-foot-tall, built like a brick shithouse neo-Nazi who could cave my skull in with his bare hands. Whereas little old 5'11" me, who's not really a powerhouse, I have a 9mm, a Glock or something. It's like, yeah, but if you shoot him once, you can probably shrug it off and still come at you. One, a bullet going through your fucking torso isn't exactly something you can shake off easily, even if you are a bull. 2, there's more than one bullet. So exactly. I would much rather have a gun, thank you. But you could just run away or use one of those stun shockers. See, I can actually believe that the guy can shrug off a stun shocker much more easily than he can shrug off a bullet.
Some people can actually, which is which I actually saw a demonstration of that. They will go down, but they'll get right back up again.
Yes, exactly. But then you'll have the entire Aryan Brotherhood hunting you because you killed one of their own. Oh, yeah, sure. 1, if I report it. 2, if I hang out around the corpse. 3, if I don't run like fuck post-shooting.
Well, technically, you would have to report it. Because, well, they'd find the bullets.
Well, look. Well, if I manage to be in the right state of mind to pick up the bullets, pick up the shells.
Well, no, anyway. I mean, the thing is that the bullets will still be in the body, and you could be identified with that.
Yes, but still, I'd much rather just risk it like that.
Well, because it's better. Well, okay, that's assuming that the Aryan Brotherhood would even care about you anyway. Because
I think they would consider it a sort of insult to their honor. It's like this white man done killed one of us. One of the Aryan Nats.
Yeah, but
he's not a Jew, but he's worse. He's a race traitor.
The problem with that is, though, once again, crime in real life is not like crime in a comic book where that would happen. The thing about criminals is they want to make money. That's why they're criminals. That's why they're mostly criminals anyway. Is they want to make a lot of money, and you don't make a lot of money by drawing attention to yourselves. They go on a killing spree and kill like 1,000 people. People are going to hunt them down, versus if they don't do anything and just keep selling meth, well, there you go.
Yeah, but here's the thing. You remember that video you once sent me of that store owner guy who shot the robber, who was facing him with a gun. The robber was facing him, pistol out, and the store owner quick drew his gun and shot the criminal.
Yeah.
Then his buddies came along and tried to shoot him. They got him in the neck, though he survived because it didn't go through the spine or anything. Then another pair came and tried the same shit again. That's the kind of thing I'm thinking about.
Well, there's that. There is a problem with that, but he was in the same area. I don't think they would go on this large manhunt to try to find you, because their attention would be better suited to, once again, making much meth and as much money as possible.
Although the Aryan Brotherhood, as far as I know, is officially against drugs. I don't know if they actually do them behind the scenes because I never actually studied it.
Well, I honestly don't remember, even though I learned about them. Whenever it comes to any criminal organization, I just assume they want to make drugs, because that is the easiest way to make money in the criminal world, that's for certain. Well, here I am sounding like fucking white. But
we went from the boys to this.
Hey, that's the way it goes. But see, to me, a lot of these issues that we discuss aren't even political issues, because, getting shot doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you are, Republican, Democrat, or otherwise. Personally, I don't want to get shot, period. And that's the thing. One of the things there was actually a story I heard about a week ago that just made me want to say "I told you so bad," but I didn't really say it. There was a shooting in California, of all places, because California, as we know, is the safest state in the union because of the gun laws. Where basically some guy shot some woman in the neck with a gun that he, of course, got completely legally, because we know how easy it is to get a gun in California. We know that.
In short, he got it illegally.
Exactly. What I find funny is anybody who really is for banning guns doesn't seem to recognize the nature of criminality. Anytime you make something illegal, you basically give a windfall to a variety of criminals. And we can't stop drugs from coming over the border at all. Not in any way, shape, or form. We haven't stopped it in the slightest. The whole war on drugs nonsense, I think, probably has done more harm than good. The idea that they couldn't switch from smuggling drugs to smuggling guns, it seems to be lost on a lot of people. Not even getting into the fact that guns aren't the problem. I actually thought about this. I did a little thought experiment for myself the other day. Guns are basically this... it's not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a quick fix, Gotta ban them guns, it'll fix everything. When in all reality, to stop spree shootings, to stop crime, you really have to, go to its source. Why does crime happen?
Because most people are poor. They're tired. They're tired of being poor. They are unhappy with themselves, their lives, society, whatever, and they want to feel like they have some small measure of power. Thus, they go on a spree shootings to try and kill that which they perceive, not that it is, but which they just perceive wrongly as being the source of their problems. For instance, Elliot Rodger, the latest spree shooter that comes to my mind, he killed basically what are Chad Thundercocks and Stacy Thundercunts. These hoity-toity, high society little fuckwits from daddy's little bank account. Now, yes, them being killed is a bad thing. I'm not saying that they deserve to die. I'm just saying that they're jerks. Not that they deserve to die. But anyways, he perceived them as being his problem. So he wanted to try and assert some power over his life by trying to get rid of the perceived problem. That's why spree shootings happen. Hell, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, they were both certifiably nuts, So they wanted to assert some sort of measure of power and, domination over the kids in the school, right?
Exactly.
I don't know why the Oklahoma City bomber bombed what he bombed, but I imagine it's for more or less the same reasons, or maybe not. I don't know.
I honestly don't remember why he did it, but it all comes down to more emotional issues than the gun's what did it. See, the thing is, you can't really expect to get rid of this behavior until you actually start addressing it. The whole gun's bad basically does nothing. it's the problem with society today. We want to point to something that causes everything, but we don't want to point to the hard stuff. You know, like the concept of violent video games. We want to say violent video game and what did it, not recognizing it's
no. These days, it's video games cause sexism.
But nobody points out that it's much more complicated than any of that. The fact is, if you want to stop spree shootings, if you want to combat crime, you have to actually deal with the issues causing it. You can't just point out something that's tangentially related to it. Guns exist, yeah, and guns are bad if they're used by bad people. Because one of the things I've always found funny is people like to think that, okay, for those who are fans of Warhammer 40k, you'll know where I'm going with this. In Warhammer 40k, some weapons can be possessed by demons that will cause weak-minded people to use them to kill people. Why? Because Khorne the Blood God does not care where the blood flows so long as it flows. But that's in Warhammer 40k. This is real life. A gun sitting on a counter is not going to just say, hey, you want to go shoot these people? No, it's not going to do that. It's a tool. It like, even when it comes to, because like, it's funny, people who like guns are stigmatized these days. They're considered, crazy. They're considered, they're considered stupid. They're considered, rednecks. They're considered racist. They're considered all these things. When in fact,
here's the thing, though. Most people would say that, yeah, but guns are a tool that's specifically designed for killing.
Which is hilarious, because while it can be used for killing, guns are just, well, let me put it this way. Guns were designed primarily for hunting purposes more than anything else. But even then, it all comes down to who uses it and why. You could say a pickaxe is specifically designed for killing because, or no, an axe. There, just an axe. An axe was designed for killing at one point. But, it's just... And the fact is, even if it is, like, say an AK-74, that was designed only for killing. So, if you don't use it for killing, then, well, oh well, Mainly guns are a hobby more than anything else.
For some people, the very fact that it has a design for, to them, it translates to, you have permission to. It's like, this was designed for killing, which means it gives you permission to kill. Jordan0142, a YouTuber whom I really like, you should really go visit him. You listeners, viewers,
hey, whatever you're doing. You should say, just stay on my channel.
But go back to John's channel and binge watch all of his videos.
Exactly.
He basically says it when he criticizes Anita Sarkeesian for saying that she says in Hitman Absolution, you can kill all of the women in a stripper club level. But Jordan basically says, like, yes, just because you have the freedom to do something does not mean you're encouraged to do it, nor does the video game in any way, shape, or form reward you for doing it, nor does it make you think that it's a good thing to do. The same with a gun. Yes, an AK-47 is designed to kill, but just because it, okay, let's say that by some miracle, I managed to find an AK-47 lying in the grass somewhere in the field near my city. By some fucking magic, it also has a full magazine. By some even more magic, it hasn't corroded yet because we've been having a lot of rain these days.
It's AK-47, even if it was corroded, it wouldn't matter.
Shut up. I'm making a point here. Let's say I pick it up, put it in like, let's say I can dislodge the fucking stock and like hide it in my bag and bring it home. I now have an AK-47 in this hypothetical scenario. I can hold it in my hand in this hypothetical scenario. Would I go on a shooting spree? Well, by the logic of some people, just because it's a tool for killing and I have it in my hands, that would mean that, yes, I would go on a shooting spree. For instance, I now have a fake katana in my hand, which I keep on my bookshelf like a complete fucking nerd. This is my katana.
Well, I shouldn't say much. I have this cheap Batman knife. And at a comic convention, I bought some cheap Batman shurikens. So there's that.
Nice. But basically, I have a copy of a tool that was just a powerful one, folded over 1,000 times, that was designed purely for killing. Yet you never fucking see me walking around town with a katana threatening to stab people.
Of course, then again,
Why?
Well, go on.
Why? Why? Because I know that 1, it will get me into a lot of trouble. 3? Apparently I skipped 2. 3, I don't want to because I don't want to hurt innocent people. Thank you.
Exactly. But there'd be some people who'd be like, well, a katana is inherently less dangerous than a gun, whereupon I would repose with, I don't want to get my head cut off. Because that's another problem. People will say, well, an AK-47, you can kill 30 people with 1 magazine. Whereas with the Mosin Nagant, you can only kill 5. Personally, I don't want to get shot with anything. Because see, that's another problem. It's like saying, you can't say that qualitatively one gun is more dangerous or more evil than another, because ultimately getting shot is getting shot. An interesting concept is dead is dead. Whether you got shot, stabbed, or your head bashed open with a rock, you're still dead. And so the thing is... No, go on.
You continue. I'll continue on with mine later.
Well, basically all I'm saying is, just because... See, this is something that I've always had a problem with. The old a million is a statistic argument. It's like, 30 people were killed with this, or 3,000 people were killed with that. The problem is, if you're one of them, more than one is enough. So the very concept of, we need to ban guns because they kill more people, basically, by that same logic, we should ban everything that can be possibly used as a weapon, because no one life is worth more than another. So whether you kill 300, 3,000, or just 3 people, it doesn't really matter, because it's equally as bad as one another. Although some countries, as much as I love England, I've always wanted to go there, actually. But they're getting kind of crazy, with you can barely even look at a gun there. That's not stopping criminals from crafting their own, because, well, to be a criminal, I think you have to break the law. But they also are banning even kitchen knives. That's the thing. To keep the population. And see, that's another thing. It's like, but England has such low crime and all that. Does it really? And
also, what people should know, some people apparently forget that England is very much smaller in size and population than the entirety of the United fucking States of America.
Well,
United States, huge fucking surface, lots of fucking people.
There's that too, but also, well, this will sound probably not be a very good argument, but if you have low crime because anything and everything is illegal or regulated in some way, is it really worth it? And what I mean by that is, are there less stabbings because you can't get kitchen knives? Are there less shootings because you can't get guns? Is that really what's causing it? Or is it something else? But let's say for sake of argument, that in order to have a fully safe society, kitchen knives are illegal, there are cameras in every house, and everything you do is constantly monitored every day. Would you want to live in that society?
Nope. I imagine some people would.
I guess, but I don't think I would. That's the thing. At some point, the concept of trading freedom for security, I think, is a bit ridiculous, And once again, we don't really know what the level of crime in England even is, because over half of crimes aren't even really reported. Now, that could have changed in recent years, but at the same time, we also have to realize we're going by official crime reports and things of that nature, and if we can't really trust the government anyway, why are those not circumspect? See, that's another thing that I always like to bring up is the data that you're looking at even real, you know? People like to quote all these statistics, but if they don't... The thing is, if you quote statistics, that means you have to trust people gathering the data. And like, if the people who don't... And if you don't really trust the people who gather the data, then why do you believe it anyway? Why is this something you can hold up, you know?
Yeah, but at that point you can trust nothing from the government, at which point you can trust nothing. But then we get into a discussion about reality, in which case I don't fucking wish to do so, because I'm still recovering from Philip K. Dick.
Well, there's that. Oh yeah, talking about Philip K. Dick for a moment. We're moving on to another topic from guns and defense and shit like that. Moving on to Philip K. Dick and his novel A Man in the High Castle. Recently, Amazon.com actually released a series based upon it. I haven't seen it myself, unfortunately, but I have read a few articles on it, and it sounds like it's really, really good. I would highly recommend watching it. I intend to watch it myself at some point. But for those who don't know, A Man in the High Castle is a classic story by the amazing writer Philip K. Dick about the Nazis winning World War II. Now, the M-Man liked it, I think, right?
Kind of. The thing is, the style, because it takes place mostly in California, or people who were once in California, the style is a bit wooden. I imagine he was trying to imitate what the Japanese people were either like back then, or what he thought were like back then. Basically, very stiff-necked, very serious. So some of the sentences were literally sounded something like it was said by Rorschach. It's like have to shut store. That's one of the sentences that stand out in my mind. I didn't like the prose all that much, and the plot was okay. There's no real plot. It's just characters interweaving with each other. But for the sake of simplicity, the plot was all right. It wasn't as good as A Scanner Darkly, if I'm remembering it right.
Well, my problem with it, even though I haven't read it, I would have passed judgment on it anyway, even if I haven't read it, is the very fact that, well, he was dealing with the 60s era knowledge of World War II, which has long since been shown to be inaccurate. There was no way the Nazis could have won World War II, even if they could have possibly won in the Soviet Union, which they couldn't. There was no way. They didn't have enough weapons, they didn't have enough men, they didn't have enough anything. So, the whole book is completely implausible. But at the same time, I still would like to see the TV show. Although, you know what? No, go on.
Yeah? Nah, I didn't have anything substantial to say.
I was going to say, although I guess I shouldn't complain, I did really like Wolfenstein New Order. And technically... Well, you know what's funny? Even when I was playing it, and I was like picking up all the little documents here and there, I was like, this is so much bullshit. I love the game anyway. It was like, oh yes, Death's Head's factory rolled out one more tank. It's like, yay, one tank. The Allies just produced about 40,000, so no matter how super your tank is, they could literally just run into your tank 100 times, you'd still be trapped, So that's the thing. I couldn't buy that the Nazis won even in that world, because Death's Head having one factory producing... Okay, let's say Death's Head had a factory. He probably had more, but let's say he just had a factory producing one giant robot per month. Allies still win. Let's say he had 100 factories producing 100 robots per month. Okay, he might win. But there's no way he's going to have a fucking 100 factories because I'll fucking A-bomb that motherfucker. But anyway.
You're such a World War II nerd.
Well, I appreciate World War II. I'm not technically a nerd about it, because that would imply that it was something good to study. It's interesting, because World War II, if you do real study on it, you can't really say that... It's funny about World War II. Okay. World War II, if you only focus on the technology, the weapons, and the battles, it can be kind of cool to read about. But when you get to the civilian problems, when you get to all the civilians getting killed, all the horrible atrocities, then it kind of leaves a bad taste in your mouth.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still would like to own every rifle used during World War II. It's kind of crazy, though. You know, I've heard people say that World War II is their favorite war, when in fact, you got to realize how many people were just utterly massacred during World War II. If it was just the battles between the armies, okay, but at the same time, the soldiers were still getting shot and things of that nature. But talking about World War II for a moment, getting into a gaming topic for a moment, I recently actually played all the way through Call of Duty 1, for one. I didn't play it back in the day, even though I was aware of it. I'm not sure why I didn't play it back in the day, but honestly, I think it's better than Medal of Honor. It's a lot more fun. You can't have fun during World War II? Well, so long as you just shoot Germans, it's fun. So long as you're not one of the Germans getting shot. But anyway, it's a great game. Gameplay's fast-paced. Graphics still look good even by today's standards. Storyline is actually pretty good. It shows all aspects of the war, except for the Nazi side. And overall, it still stands up. It's way better, in fact, than all the other ones that came afterwards, especially COD 2. Now, I think you played COD 2, right?
I played it up to a point because I couldn't get the Russian missions to load for some reason.
Yeah.
But for what I remember, that's when the regenerating health started, if I'm not wrong.
Yeah, that's pretty much when it happened.
It made the game a lot easier because in Call of Duty 1, you didn't have that. You still had, the health bar and the health pickups, which made it a lot harder because you couldn't just, yell fucking charge and go headlong into the fray, shooting, then finding cover and sitting, as Yahtzee says, while your face grows back. You actually had to be careful, move slowly, and check behind every fucking corner because sometimes you would also go into a house. And once you saw that beautiful fucking health pickup, the weight off your shoulder finally fell, and then you got shot while running towards it.
Exactly.
It held a lot more complexity and difficulty than Call of Duty 2, although I do like Call of Duty 2 more as a spectacle rather than an actual game.
And incidentally, in a way that's completely unbeknownst to you, that actually segues into something I'm about to talk about. The concept of gaming in the modern era. I think games have much less staying power today than they did back in the day. And what I mean by that is, games today are all about spectacle, but they're more like a movie. Now, only the most amazing movies are actually still in the popular consciousness. With the advent of regenerating health, I think games in general have become less memorable because, well, you go from cutscene to cutscene, and that's really it, because the gameplay itself is just so much window dressing, because there's no real stake to it. I think
exactly. There's no real challenge, is what you mean to say. Hence why Demon Souls, Dark Souls 2, and Bloodborne are so popular with people, because they're the challenge that they didn't know that they were missing.
That, and I think without